There we are once again. We're all gathered Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern for the Find Your New Normal Coping with Cancer live broadcast. I'm Dave Williams, your friendly host, and every week we try to examine a topic in a casual talk show format that deals with the issues that cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers really face as they go through a very interesting journey, for lack of a better term, from their diagnosis and treatment to post-treatment and survivorship that eventually gets them back to a state of wellness and vitality. But that's a very different journey for each of us. I'm a cancer survivor, and every week I sort of bring the perspective of that survivorship role or path that I've enjoyed, and share the stage with a co-host that some of you are becoming quite familiar with now, Hayley Dubin, who is what I love to refer, or she refers to herself, and I love that term, cancer recovery coach. And Hayley, say hello to everyone and let them know a little bit about you and why do you put up with me every week?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hayley Dubin, which I think most of you know by now. And I am a health coach, and I work with people who have finished treatment for cancer and have fear around recurrence. And I help them gain confidence that they'll remain healthy so they can fully live the joyful, vibrant life that's waiting for them. And I'm really looking forward to today's talk because I feel that, you know, people feel powerless when it comes to cancer. And I know people want that sense of control and what they can do on their journey. So I'm really looking forward to Dr. Shani's talk and see what she has to say.
Well, yes, and somewhere on the screen, and that's the one limitation of Blab, I never know which direction to point, up, down, or wherever, because on the replays we're in different positions. But certainly right now, to my to my right, one side of me is Dr. Shani Fox, a holistic physician and a certified life coach who I'm been following the writing that she does, particularly on Huffington Post. She's one of those rare people who get that honor of being on HuffPost. It's a very prestigious journal. I refer it to as that, with lots of different information. And Shani has been kind enough to decide to spend some time with Hayley and I today to really talk about this area of personal power and what does that really mean to the cancer patient, because many of us really feel that power has been diminished or lost or stolen. And through the treatment process, we become really at the whim of our oncology team. And then they graduate and in some places actually ring a bell saying you're cancer free, move forward. But they don't say move forward. They say get back to your life. And that's always bothered me, because you don't go back to your life. You've got to find a new normal or start a new beginning. And that was really the framework that I bounced off of Dr. Shani in terms of what do we do with this concept of power. So as a way of introducing her, I think that's a good foundation. So over to you, Shani, and say hello to our audience and give them a little background on who you are, what you've been doing, and what today we should be really focusing in on.
Well, thank you, Dave. I'm very happy to be here. I'm Dr. Shani Fox. I'm a trained naturopathic physician or holistic physician, as well as a certified life coach. And I have found very early on in my career that the tools of naturopathic medicine were wonderful for working with cancer survivors, whereas the mainstream system talks about pills and surgery really as their only treatments. I found that I had a toolkit that really applied to this population, your population, where pills and surgery are not really what you need, are they? The issues of cancer survivorship are of healing, are of recovery, of replenishment, both body and spirit. I was fortunate enough to get trained with the toolkit to handle those problems. And so I have just enjoyed putting those to use for the benefit of cancer survivors. And what I came to know as I began to work is that healing the body is one thing. It's very important. that we walk around with bodies that function well, helps us do all kinds of other things that we want. But what I found was my patients, even though I could get their bodies up and ticking and to all appearances doing really well, a lot of them would still walk around saying, you know, I'm not well, I don't feel well, or I'm afraid. And they weren't behaving like a well person, even though I could see their bodies were great. So it occurred to me, in a bigger way at least, that the emotional, spiritual aspect of this journey is enormous. And if we're talking about recovering from cancer, we needed to include that as well. And that's when I certified as a life coach to have additional tools for that, and found that those tools really work well in this arena where we don't want to so much dissect the past as we want to live in the present, plan the future, and feel really confident at doing that. And so that's how I came kind of to be by training and by experience where I am.
And you have had direct experience with cancer, have you not?
I've been up and close and personal with cancer. My father passed away of pancreatic cancer. It was a very short and traumatic journey, and that was one of my inspirations for taking this particular route.
And you work with survivors on a constant basis. You're not just an author and a writer and a developer. You're a practitioner.
I am a practitioner, exactly. That is the main thing I do is I work with people directly. The author and all that is all augmenting my clinical practice.
When you look at all the people that you've met over the years and who have gone, well, I guess they're going either through the journey or have gone past post-treatment and are trying to reassess what survivorship is, what have you really sensed has been lacking? Something that is pretty common to us all. Those of you in the audience know Hayley is a survivor. I'm a survivor. What do you think you've seen that is pretty common among us all?
Most people describe a particular moment on the journey, which is fundamental to the way they're feeling. And that is the point where treatment ends. You referred to it earlier, Dave, but when you're diagnosed with cancer, pretty much everybody, all my patients tell me the same thing. The decisions are made very quickly, almost too quickly. You don't have a time to reflect or think about them, and you're funneled down a path of particular treatment without being given too many choices typically. And it just starts right away. Boom, boom, boom. You've got appointments. You've got people to see. You've got, instructions everywhere, right? And then, of course, you start not feeling well typically during treatment, part of the journey. So that whole piece of the journey is kind of, it starts before you know it, and it's over before you've had a chance to digest it. And then all of a sudden, out come the balloons, like you said, and people say, "You're done," And it is a point to celebrate. I don't mean that we shouldn't celebrate that.
No.
However, what's being forgotten by the system is that at that moment, pretty much everybody says, my treatment team evaporated, my schedule all of a sudden evaporated that I was familiar with. I had no idea where to turn with my questions, and I had loads of questions. I really had no idea what my direction was to be, and all my support just went away. And that, one of my survivors referred to that interestingly as tears and fears. She said, I had tears and fears upon diagnosis, and I had tears and fears even worse at that point when treatment was what ended. And so what we're doing, unfortunately, in the mainstream system, I mean, of course, we're treating as best we can. It's all important. But at that particular point in time, we're leaving people very vulnerable, just completely exposed, both physically. They're not feeling well. They're terribly tired. They're in no shape to get back to their life. So that whole recovery piece is overlooked. And then, of course, on the emotion spirit side, with all these questions, with their old identity often in ashes and no sense of who they're going to be. So it's just a very vulnerable transition point, and we're not doing people a big favor by abandoning them in the way we do, removing all their support at that particular point. So very naturally, that transition generates a huge amount of fear, a huge amount of overwhelm, and a sense of powerlessness.
And is that all taken care of in about 1 or 2 weeks? You sort of just get through it and move on?
If I could do that, I'd be a millionaire, I'm sure. I'd bottle that and sell that. No, unfortunately, it's not. And it's also probably not meant to be a matter of 1 or 2 weeks. It's a matter of, let me reassemble my support team. Let me find who is going to hold the belief in my wonderful future, even when I can't quite see it yet, or have no idea how to get there. So we've got to have somebody at our backs just saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Now let's, step by step by step, put the pieces in place. And yes, it's a longer process than 1 or 2 weeks. Sure.
And it's not just the psychosocial side, is it? It's not just the emotional ride. We've been having a few discussions the last couple of meetings with people who've been helping us deal with that emotional roller coaster that you're on. But the way I've interpreted some of the things you've been reading, you tend to help a person take a look at their goals in life, the dreams that they have, helping them reassess a direction and a path that they can move forward rather than just cope with the emotional difficulty. You tend to have a different idea of how do I get through this.
I do, or at least a very different idea from the mainstream system. If you look at, for example, the Institute of Medicine put out this big report back in, I think, 2006 about cancer survivorship, finally recognizing that there was a big gaping hole in Western cancer care with regard to survivorship. And it did have some new ideas and, much more than had been ever articulated prior. So this is a good thing. But even there, they talk about things like coping with, managing symptoms, managing anxiety, managing depression, all kind, whether or physical symptoms, but whatever it was, managing it, which implies that it's going to be around, let's get used to it, rather than can we move beyond it? And so I'm all about moving beyond. And you mentioned goals and dreams. Yes, I do work that way, but let me also clarify that the goals and dreams evolve as a survivor evolves. So it's very natural that when you first come off a treatment, you're not thinking about quite, things like, what's my life purpose yet? Your very first goal is, let me feel better. I've
been working on that one all my life. Not because
well, but I mean, at that point, we need to take it piece by piece. So there's a first stage where if a person's, fatigued, if a person's weakened, not nourished well, whatever the issues are right then and there, we set a first set of goals. Okay, let's get you to the place where you feel, I can wake up every day with energy to get through my day well, if that's where we start. Then we, of course, move on from there to another set of goals. Okay, I'm feeling better now. My body's coming back. I get it, but I'm so scared. And so we deal with the fear type goals. That would be probably a second stage, that let's get you your place where you can not be, your life is not dominated by fear. You're making decisions that are not fear-based. And then after that, somewhere after that, we come back to, okay, all right, I made it through all that. Now let me see if we can, so what do I want my life to look like? I know it's different now. And if I look back, there's some things, I'd like to recapture some of what was there earlier perhaps, but maybe there's some things I actually like to do differently. How could I do those? How could I develop those? So it's an evolution of what the goals and dreams are. And yes, we can have high flying dreams when we, when the survivor's ready for it, things as big as why am I here and what's my purpose? I love doing that, but I recognize that not every survivor comes out of the hospital ready to do that. So it's an evolution.
I like the word that I hear by a number of the experts that we brought on when they talk about this word fear. And it's been a confusing concept for me because at the beginning, I interpreted fear as being, well, I went through facing my mortality. I was, was I going to live? Was I going to die? The hospital was a scary place to be in. The treatment was a fearful place to be in. The invasive medical treatment was a scary thing to be in. So I was always interpreting fear as part of that medical intervention process and this world that I was thrown into. And then when I I graduated into survivorship, now the fear was fear of recurrence that everyone was talking about. Well, fear is going, your cancer can come back either, in some way. And so you got to start living with that. But now as I'm getting a stronger understanding of exactly what you're talking about in terms of the path that lays ahead and what I want to do, the sense of fear that I have, I think, is still dealing with the fact that I haven't regained my personal power. I feel insecure and that it was taken away from me dramatically. And I didn't realize it was because I had interpreted it as loss of control, that I had to become dependent on everybody and everything. And I wasn't the expert anymore. So I gave myself to them. but I didn't realize I had given them also my personal power. And when I was given the opportunity to move forward, sure, I could now decide I could be in control of my life again, but I haven't felt powerful. It's only been now 3 years later that I'm just starting to feel what this dimension of powerlessness was all about. And that's why I loved, your topic today of reawakening your personal power, because I feel that's the stage I'm in. It's like I'm certainly now just starting to grow and to accept that I do have power again. Is that a reasonable explanation of how I've been dealing with this issue of fear?
You and a lot of other people, Dave. Yes. So basically, when we are afraid, when we're overwhelmed or when we're that afraid, we're saying something out there is bigger than I am. I'm threatened by something that I feel is bigger or I perceive as bigger than I am. Now, I'm not understating what cancer is. Cancer, can be very dangerous, and we need to give it its respect for what it is. Certainly, it's a worthy adversary. But nevertheless, one of the things that people do realize as they come out of the experience is, oh, cancer was there. Whoa, that was a big one. But I'm here. I made it. Wow, I made it. I didn't know I had that kind of strength. I didn't know I could do that. So when we encounter those huge things in life, sometimes what we come to realize afterwards is, wow, I am bigger in terms of my spirit. I'm bigger than I thought. I'm more powerful than I thought I was. Now, if a person's not gotten there yet, that's what I'm helping them get to, recognizing that, yes, this was tough. Indeed, this was very tough. So we acknowledge all of that. It's not surprising that you felt weak, you felt vulnerable. Absolutely. And yet, the part of you that can overcome this never went away. It never went away. The circumstances certainly made it look like it did, because the medical system told you, hand yourself over. We are in charge now.
Yes.
You better do it. It even comes across it sometimes as, you better do this or else.
Oh, yes, many times.
Exactly. Doesn't it? So, of course, and we are, that gives a person pause. We don't easily overlook that. We tend to say, oh, well, if I'm not in that much danger, I better go along. And I'm not saying people shouldn't go along. It often is the best, course of to go down. So I'm certainly not saying we should disagree, but we should always recognize that we have a choice. We always have the power of choice. We can, and I typically work with people after treatment is over, but to the extent that I meet people who are beginning treatment or about to begin treatment, I say, let's take a few moments here. Let's get clear. This is highly recommended, and nobody says you shouldn't do it, but let's get clear. Are you aligned with this? Are you open and willing, or are you still resisting this, or are you doing it just out of fear? Let's clarify. Are you on board with this? And that just reminds people that they do have a choice. They, again, not saying they shouldn't take it, but they can willingly say, I'm in, rather than running down being pushed down a path that somebody else is saying you better do this. So it kind of starts back there, but then of course in survivorship, again, when everything falls away. So after a process like that where we've been disempowered, taking that all back can certainly take some time. And that's part of what I'm here to do, is help people bridge that gap, reconnect with that place that was always there, but is no longer familiar, or it doesn't even seem like it's available to them at the moment.
And what is the first step?
Oh, go ahead. I was going to ask Hayley if you went through that as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just curious if you went through a loss of power, a recognition of a loss of power. And
absolutely. I remember when I left the hospital, because at the time I stayed in the hospital when I had my chemotherapy, and it was my last chemotherapy, and I knew I should be celebrating, and the doctor came in and said, congratulations, you're cancer-free. Yes. And I felt more scared than ever, because I knew I was leaving, and all of a sudden I had a ton of questions. And really, like Dave said, he basically said, go back to living your normal life. You're going to be fine. And that is just such a scary time. I agree with you that it's scarier than when you get diagnosed. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I know I definitely did. And I know a lot of my clients do. But I was wondering what the first step is that you take with your clients once they're finished with treatment. Is it just different for everyone, or do you have a certain system?
I have a rough system, but it's absolutely different for everyone. I mean, the most important thing is to be, to talk to somebody enough to get clear where they are on this continuum so that then I start wherever that is. I meet them exactly where they are. As far as the first step, again, I can't overgeneralize, but the very first thing I do is simply remind them of, at the very least, just breathe this in for a moment, look carefully and really absorb what it took for you to get even to where you are today. What did that take? You just faced something that you had very little, it's probably caught you by surprise. Most diagnoses of cancer are by surprise. So, you might have been having symptoms, but pretty much everybody goes in and is like, I'm so shocked by that, understandably. So it was a shock at first, and that's when the whole process started. So we go back and say, from that moment until here, look what you have done. Wow. The persistence, the patience, the sheer physical strength, just sticking to it, making yourself get to there, when the days you didn't feel like, showing up for things, even just conversations with your family, I think, the littlest things, but you sort of just kept it going and kept on and kept on. Look at that strength that you have. Up until now, it was a coping kind of a strength. So we just reconnected with that. And now we're going to take that very same source of strength and we're going to apply it a little differently. Thank heavens, you've made it this far. Your body's going to get better from here on. I'll help you if you need that way too. But it's going to get better so far from now on. And so let's start from that point and just reconnect with it and know that you made it. You're meant to be here. You're meant to be here. And so let's just look into what that means. Let's look into what that means. Each day a little better, each day a little stronger, each day a little more connected. And we just work it that way, until that gathers some momentum. And then the person will start to say, okay, now, I mean, it's very clear when they're ready to graduate to further steps beyond that.
I love that because just you saying that makes me feel at ease, and I know
Hey. That's the idea.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that their bodies have failed them and they don't feel good about themselves. And so I just think that's really reassuring.
You just touched on another aspect of this, is trusting your body. So it's, of course, very understandable that a person would think, my body failed me and I can't trust it anymore. It's a huge thing they just went through. So here's the interesting thing. As a naturopathic physician, one of the fundamental principles that I practice on is your body is an incredibly designed instrument, incredibly exquisite design. And it will, if it possibly can, it will do its very best for you. It is on your side. Now, with cancer, what happened is something got out of hand, a particular process got out of hand and needed to be nipped such that the body could recover that its ability to, move forward rather than backward. So that's what treatment is about. But now that that's been taken care of, your body's going to do its darndest. That's what it was built to do. And so believe it or not, your body is your friend. Yes, you had just had a very difficult chapter in your relationship, but it means to be your friend, and it's going to come back and do as the best it can for you as long as we support it. And that's what you and I do, Hayley, is help people support their bodies such that they can do their jobs and they can, they can provide you that support. But that's another piece that I help them rebuild early, is that your body's not against you. Your body does not mean to be a time bomb. Your body really, what it wants to do is recover and support you to do what you're meant to do here.
Absolutely.
Life is very confusing. I mean, we have enough trouble just trying to figure out the steps of life normally. And then when you get blindsided by cancer, it just throws everything right off because you question everything. You question, who you've been and what you should be doing. You get into very metaphysical, spiritual elements of, if I am surviving, why should I survive? And other people that I'm meeting here in the hospital aren't surviving. And so am I just lucky? Or as you said, I'm meant to be here. If I'm meant to be here, what the heck am I supposed to do? I am so grateful that over the last 2 years, I've met so many great people like you who are there helping us, with people like Hayley focusing in on the nutrition and the health and the lifestyle issues, and yourself as a holistic physician and a life coach, blending that in it. I wish I had known about all these resources, when I was going through the treatment, because it would have made this exploration process so much easier, because it's very, very confusing living with cancer in your life. And I unfortunately still live with people in my world, my support network, who think that eventually you get away from living with cancer. And everything I'm reading and everyone I'm talking to says, no, you're with cancer forever. So learn to walk with it comfortably. There's always going to be issues that are related to your cancer diagnosis and treatment process. That means you're going to learn to be comfortable with it, or you've got constant issues that you're going to face. And that must be confusing for you when you work with someone and says, so do I really have a future? Do I, if I'm sitting here with a fear of recurrence, or a fear that there's this other thing that just happened to me, and I was there, as the audience knows, a few weeks ago, where I was saying, I probably won't be here coming this Christmas. There's too much going on with my body, and I got a sense that, I've only got a few more months to live. And boy, does that ever change your whole feeling of what life is about and what can you do when you start to frame cancer as a death sentence. So what do you do with those patients who need to get their personal power back, but be realistic that there are issues that could throw you off the path again, but you should have a direction that your life, that you're in control of for your life?
Yeah, so this is where personal power comes back in. I'm just going to give you a little, tell you who my role model was in this. It was my dad. Now, my dad, I mentioned earlier, he died of pancreatic cancer, but he was 80 years old at the time. There was an earlier chapter, when he was 52, he was hit by an automobile and nearly killed. And for 9 months, we did not know if he was going to live or die. Fortunately, he did recover and then lived another 28 years. And because he made it through that particular trauma, he got it. He got it. Life is precious. And no matter what it is, cancer, anything, automobile accident, anything, each day counts. Each interaction counts. My words count. And so he wasted none of those. His values got really clear, that I create days that I am happy with, who I spend them with, how I spend my time. I create days that I am happy with. And of course, the days add up to weeks, months, and years, and that's what a lifetime is. So it was that clarification that, yes, in a very traumatic way in his case, but he got really clear what his life was about. And in that sense, he was in control, even though eventually he succumbed to cancer a number of years later. That kind of decision-making, to set your own compass like that, is the key here. That's taking back your personal power. Is that, we're all terminal here. I could go out tomorrow and be hit by a bus. We don't,
sure.
Right? Yes, cancer. It's one of those things that we keep thinking about, but it's not the only way to go. And so all of us, if we want to create meaning while we're here, if we want to create happiness while we're here, that's a decision we make in a general way and on a daily basis. And those are the lives we look back on and say, wow, what a legacy he left.
There's a tweetable moment right there. I wish we should have tweets going on with this as well, because happiness is a choice. It is the
happiness
way you
is a choice
today.
Yes,
and you got to catch yourself in that, because you frame it as the fear element coming at you, which blocks out what you're doing in the moment today. The Tao of now. I just have had to concentrate on. Forget about the past. You can't do anything with that. And my goodness, I've learned I haven't got a clue what's happening in the future. I thought I understood things, but I've learned, no, I'm always wrong. But today I can control, I can manage, and I can choose to enjoy it if that's what I'm going to look at. If I'm going to sit there and fret about, well, tomorrow is the day the lightning hits me, or that commercial on television right now about heart attack could happen today, and you get a little message on your car window saying your heart attack will happen shortly. If that's the way you're living, then your happiness is really not there in the moment.
Exactly. And the present moment is the only place we actually have power. We see what happens if we let our thoughts go to the future. I mean, on the one hand, we can plan and dream for the future, but it's also very easy to allow those thoughts to be hijacked into fear, worry, what could happen to me? What if?
Sure.
So, and we have no power over that. But what we have power over is what happens today. And so that's, in terms of taking that personal power, that's what we concentrate on, is how am I creating my todays? And we put that within a framework of how I'd like my life to look. So that, there's that framework piece, but then there's the execution day by day by day, even hour by hour, really. Like you said, you decide what you want your day to look like.
And you've got to pay attention to all the things that are happening. We always keep talking about gratitude journals, a coping mechanism every day, appreciate the day, write it all down. But then we don't reread it. If I go back and take a look at what I wrote 6 months ago and start to look at what I was grateful for and what I have learned, then you get a different perspective of how to enjoy today. In fact, it's so appropriate. I was talking to a cancer patient just before we came on air. April 1st, he graduated, his post-treatment finished, and he's now a survivor. And strangely enough, he was saying he was going to Portland for a vacation, which was where you live. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I'm meeting him, and he just got out of treatment, and he's all excited that he's going to Portland. But I asked him, so what did you learn about cancer? And he said, cancer taught me that you can be a greater you. And it just,
beautiful.
That's gorgeous. Something? I mean, that was just an amazing synopsis of what we're just saying right now. Cancer taught me you can be a greater you. And, but only if you're paying attention to all the things that have happened to you. As you were just saying, look what you overcame. It's not what you've done, it's what you've overcome that makes you the person that you are. And if you keep track of that, then you get a sense of power. It's not just the control, you get a sense of you again. You get a sense of, look at this, I am a worthwhile person. And you should get to know me. I'm a good person that you need to know. I'm not that sickly person that everyone was pitying and thought that, I have a family member that they were betting on which day they'd hold the funeral, so you can just imagine, how they were perceiving my treatment program. And I was trying to lean on them for support. They were counting the days before I was gone. So it was very odd that you face all of this that you're dealing with. But if you reflect on that, in your daily journals, and you start to get a sense of who you are, now, you are reawakening your personal power. And I love the fact that you didn't really lose it. You just you were no longer perceptive of it. And so now it's up there in the front again. I just love this concept. I love these shows, folks, as you know, because I learn so much every week of what cancer is all about and what you do to manage cancer. We always keep talking about the treatment program and coping with the oncology, surviving the treatment program. But it's about surviving in a new way and creating your new life. Survivorship is there for us, but we've got to understand who we are, what we can do, and get rid of some of these boxes we put ourselves in.
No doubt. And I think cancer is such a teacher. And, I think we look inside ourselves much more than we would have in our normal everyday lives. So I'm just wondering, what can you give us like a take home step to take when, we're just anxious all the time and just worrying about the future, worrying about the next scan? What would you recommend to your patients?
I have to distill that into one takeaway, huh?
Well, no, absolutely not.
4 words. Okay, 4 words. That's the takeaway.
Well, if I had to distill it, I think what I would say is there's a part of you that is stronger than cancer. There's a part of you that's stronger than cancer. You know, your body certainly takes a lot of the trauma, and it's hard to see it, therefore, but there's a part of you that is stronger than cancer. You made it this far. You're now, beyond at least a certain stage. And if we put that part, if we nurture that part, really love that part, such that it can be out front, then your life does not like a life that was, dominated by cancer. Your life looks like a wonderful life. There was a cancer episode in it, or maybe even an ongoing dance with cancer in it. But your life, nevertheless, is a wonderful, wonderful thing that you created that was only, cancer was a part of it, but cancer was not what it was about. So yes, there's a part of you that's absolutely stronger than cancer.
You just threw another term, the dance with cancer. I love that. You've given me so many little phrases. Dancing with cancer. I mean, again, it's a different way of positioning in your mind what you're dealing with. And for those of you that are listening to us and watching us, we want your questions. We want you to interact. I've been watching the text chat, and it's been very quiet out there, and yet I know you're there. They're all engrossed by what we're saying, and they're not really typing anything down. And I know there's a couple of people in their hospital beds who are watching us, and it's okay. John, you can ask a question. I know you don't want to come on camera yet, and the camera slot is open. But, Dr. Shani's giving us some really new positioning statements. That's the thing that my take home is here, is that you tend to have your own vision of the dance that you're in. And I love that because, it can be a waltz. It can be a tango. It can be a foxtrot, and, are you the lead or are you the follower? That's a nice metaphor, the dance that you're doing with cancer, and how you're going to, pay attention to the music that you're hearing, because that noise around you is certainly overwhelming. And I know I'm not the exception, and I know everyone's giving me these fan mails that comes in saying too much information, and saying, but I'm trying to give examples of how you can, as a patient, get caught up into the system. And I certainly had the expectation that, I was sick, I will get treated, I will get well, I'll move on with my life, a nice linear fashion. And I discovered that's not at all the dance. It is a number of roller coasters that you're getting on, some of which simultaneously. And the issues come at you constantly. One day you're dealing with relationship issues with your loved ones. The next day, financial issues due to treatment. Another one, metaphysical, spiritual issues of your relationship with God or lack thereof. The next day, it's nutrition and lifestyle. I mean, it doesn't seem to end. And now I'm finally, after all these years, accepting that, because I was resisting it. I was, and I'm wondering if that's what you meant by the term taming the tiger, because that's the way I interpreted that phrase that you shared in the green room before we came on air, because I'm sensing that I am attempting to do something that I shouldn't be doing. The tiger is going to be there, and I'm not ever going to tame that tiger. I'm probably just going to get comfortable with living with that tiger and sharing my life with that tiger, and maybe not being afraid of being eaten by the tiger anymore. I don't think he's ever going to be my friend, but I know that I can't get rid of the tiger.
True. So yes, when we face great uncertainty in our life, and I love the phrase you used just now, multiple roller coasters, even simultaneous. So it can feel like that. So yes, so there's lots of uncertainty here, and the tiger kind of represents the uncertainty. Sometimes it comes in the form of fear. And no, fear does not go away. In fact, fear is built into us for a good reason, right? I mean, fear is what keeps us from walking into traffic. So, at a certain level, at a survival level, it helps to keep us safe. Problem is that we sometimes take that too far. We want to be safe all the time, and life just is not like that, certainly when it comes to cancer. So we have to learn that's where the dance comes in. That's the gray zone where we have to allow fear to be there to do what it needs to do at a certain level, but we must not allow it to become dominant in our lives like, a bear-toothed tiger would, I mean, normally most of us would bow to that, right? So we have to, we are learning to be in the presence of the tiger, and we're learning kind of like we're training the dog to train that tiger. Okay, you can be you in that place over there, and this half of the room is for me. And you don't come over here and I don't go over there. We will always be in the same room, but we need to learn to live together in this room and not destroy each other.
Can you, I'm wondering, just another analogy, can you transform the tiger into a unicorn? Because we've had a couple of shows where we've talked about the fact that cancer is a gift. Cancer gives you an opportunity to reassess so many different things, learn so much about yourself, and generally the people that we've had on the show and people that I meet every week as cancer survivors are saying that it in many ways is a really good thing that happened to them. They would choose not necessarily have to have that blessing the same way, but it was a positive thing, not a deteriorating thing. So, you know, can the metaphor be extended to look at all of this fear and uncertainty and loss as a foundational element that can get you to a better place to actually attain the dreams that maybe you've had for your life, and now it's time to make them happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, the key word that you said just now is transforming this. We can transform our relationship with the tiger, whatever that tiger is, uncertainty, fear. We can absolutely transform that relationship. And the people who are saying that cancer is a gift now have in certain, you know, they no longer see it as bigger than they see it now in a sense as something that served them.
Oh, I like that.
I'm sure they didn't see it up front, did they?
No.
You know, most likely. No. But now at this point in time, they've transformed the relationship. Yesterday on my webinar, I mentioned this also. So, you know, there's lots of things that can be recommended. I recommend them too. There's lots of short-term things we can recommend how to deal with fear. And they're great. They're great. But most of them assume that fear is something to run away from, like a tiger. And what if we challenged that assumption and said, okay, we don't have to run from fear. We need to learn to live with it, coexist with it. It's not something we need to run from anymore. So first of all, we stop the running, which is exhausting in the long run. And what we can do is we can say, wait a minute, if I stop running and turn around and face you and just, I don't know what you're trying to tell me, but maybe you're trying to tell me something. I'm listening. I'm willing to learn. You have a very different relationship now with the fear.
For sure.
And that's, by the way, a scary thing to do in itself. That's why I stand by people's shoulders. I have their back as they do that. It's hard to have that conversation alone. But that's one of my great purposes here is I help people stop the running, which is what's got them in anxiety all the time, and say, okay, maybe we can just do something different with this. And slowly, slowly, as they're ready, we turn around and we look at it together and we listen. We just listen. We don't have to do anything spectacular. We just listen. Because just like cancer can then say things to you, you know, be grateful you're alive and all the other lovely things that, you know, you've got a purpose here. Cancer's got many, many messages it could carry, positive ones when all is said and done. Fear can have those too, for example. And so that tiger can have messages for us if we're willing to turn around and look at it long enough and listen to it long enough to hear them.
Yeah. And I mean, stress, doesn't it cause, you know, our immune system to, I wouldn't say shut down, but to not work as well when we're in a constant state of stress and fear? Is there something that you offer, you know, for that? I don't know, you know, because obviously you're a holistic physician, so you do herbs and those kind of things to help boost the immune system.
Well, I do lots of work with the immune system. I mean, that would be a whole different talk.
Right.
If we wanted to go that too deep. But here's something interesting to note. So yes, stress, chronic stress does wear on the immune system. That's not what we want for survivors, because obviously we want a competent immune system that's going to protect you going forward. So it's one of the elements, just like, good food and all that sort of thing. We want not a stress-free environment, that's impossible, but a way to live with stress that works for you. So that yes, we're going to find that along the way. What is that for any particular person? I'll mention here that on the positive side, there's some fantastic work being done right now on how to actually retrain how your brain handles stresses. And believe it or not, I mean, the science is amazing, but what's more important is that the actual things that a person would need to do to implement this are incredibly simple. So it turns out that mindfulness and all that entails, sometimes that looks like meditation if a person's a meditator, but it also could mean simply some deep breathing breaks during the day. Being very aware of where you are and sort of just breathing in with your senses, with all your senses. Like, for example, standing in a garden and just with your sense of smell, with your sense of sight, even the hearing, like bees, birds, butterflies, whatever, bringing your senses to life and really being where you are in the moment. All of these are forms of mindfulness exercise. And the more we practice mindfulness, it actually retrains the frontal cortex of our brain, and therefore it puts out different hormones, and therefore it retrains the amygdala, which is that fear center of the brain. It calms it down. You can retrain this startling and on alert mode. You can transform that too physically, actually, in the brain by doing certain practices like this. So that, again, is a large talk that we can get into some other time. But yes, this has become part of my practice. Most of my practice is conversation with people. We get most of our results through conversation, but I add in these mindfulness pieces because they actually physically retrain our brain centers so that it makes it easier to do what we're talking about.
I mean, the mind-body medicine side is just getting a lot of attention in cancer right now, because we started off, a while ago believing that it was a meditation process that helped you get into a state of calm, that it was a way of coping with the anxieties and emotional sequence that you were going through. But in fact, it turned out that change in mindfulness actually controlled the hormonal system. You would be able to affect the hormones running through your body and actually, engage in a physiological reaction that was healthier for you. And 2 weeks ago, a great cancer show on Sunday afternoon called All Things Cancer that the Anti-Cancer Club puts on, which you should go to the anticancerclub.com and take a look at the Sunday afternoon cancer topics they have. They interviewed Avi Lerner, who was really talking about how he now has been working on hypnosis as a way of literally controlling the immune system, that under hypnotic treatment, you can actually turn on those aspects of your immune system to fight the cancer to a stronger and more prolonged basis. So what started off as being simply a coping mechanism that moved into a biochemical control mechanism is now turning into a mindful way of having your brain or your mind actually control the outcomes of fighting disease. So it is something that is just fascinating me, that what thought of as being very superficial is in fact very directed to these kinds of changes. And we're going to try and get Avi on our show to talk about what he's learned, because it is a mind, body, or holistic side of things. And I know we haven't talked about your naturopathic kind of approach to what it is that is going to affect your body. But Annie and Fanfa from the Annie's Appleseed Project is coming on in a couple of weeks. And hopefully you can join us then and bring up that side, because we're going to get into a lot of the natural health and alternative complementary medicine things that you can do to manage the physiological impacts that are going on in your body. And then, as you were saying today, blend those with this other mindset adjustments so that you've got a holistic approach to the dance with cancer. I think this is terrific. This is terrific.
Yes.
Look at that. We just talked on and on. We've gone an hour already, and I've been I feel so guilty. I'm a terrible host. I haven't brought any of our guests, our visitors on. There's still some time, so you may be shy because we're on the record. We'll go off the record in a moment, and maybe you'll turn on your webcams then and join in. But there is still an opportunity to ask Dr. Shani some questions that you may have. While you're posing that, can you share with us, how we get in touch with you and how we, can utilize your services? What is it? I know that you've got a website, and I think we put it already on the site, drshanifox.com, but you also have a PDF handout, don't you, on 7 myths that people could subscribe to or get access to?
I do, and that would be 7, the number 7, cancer myths, myths.com. 7cancermyths.com. And what you'll find there is a free PDF. It's challenging some of the common beliefs of survivorship. That's why they're myths, things that are commonly believed, and we don't blame people for believing because the system certainly encourages these beliefs, but that if we think about them differently, you can start to see that there are greater solutions, many more choices out there than you may have encountered so far. So it's actually an initial piece of, towards taking back your personal power and creating the life that you'd love to live, that, not what somebody else says you should be doing, or even the cancer says that you should be doing, but the one that you, from the inside, you just know it's in there and just waiting to come out. That's the one we want to nourish and put in charge. And so we begin by getting you back in charge with your ability to do that. And that's what 7 Cancer Myths is about.
And I don't want to embarrass you, but I was impressed that you have a fear first aid kit. And today is the day of these terms. A first aid kit for fear really struck me as an interesting concept. Could you just share a little bit about what that is?
Well, first aid, of course, by nature is what we do in the moment to take care of a problem that's urgent. And so fear can come up in very urgent ways for cancer survivors. And so the Fear First Aid Kit it's not a long-term solution, but it's a very effective short-term solution for those moments when you just feel overwhelmed and the typical situation, right? I've got a scan coming up in 3 days. I am so scared. So what do I do between now and Thursday to calm myself so I can function well at work? I can be attentive to my loved ones, etc. It's for those situations. It's like an acute response, a very simple, very straightforward method. Very easy to master. If you do these couple of steps in a row and practice these, you will return to that present moment where you are back in charge and the fear has to therefore move off to the side. So that's why it's a first aid kit. It's a quick response.
And that's accessible on your website as well?
Well, you can get to it through my website, but it's all on Amazon. The Cancer Survivors Fear First Aid Kit on Amazon.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes.
That's terrific. Well, we'll get that link in there in just a moment as well. So we don't seem to have any questions, and I don't have anyone rushing right now to get on camera. So let's end the formal recorded session of our presentation and just hang around for a few minutes more to answer any lingering questions people may have. Hayley, would you like to make some final comments about today and for Dr. Shani?
Well, Dr. Shani, thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much. You just have that comforting voice, and I'm sure you help a lot of people, which I think is fantastic. And I'm looking forward to looking at your website and probably ordering your fear kit. And again, just thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
And any final comments you'd like to leave our audience? Dr. Shani?
There's a part of you that's stronger than cancer. There's a part of you that's stronger than cancer. Yeah, just get to know that part and life looks a lot different.
I need that. I've just got so many visualizations. I've got to get you to do a lot of what you've just done with us on video snippets and get them onto your website, because you have a natural way about you, and a very, as Hayley mentioned, a very warm, friendly, informative manner that would be a natural for people to watch. So we've got to convince you or guide you or motivate you in somehow to get more of you on the video so that we can get to know who you are and what you do. This was a great opportunity for Hayley and I to have you here and to share you with our audience, and so pleased that you were able to do that. So for those of you out there, we're going to hang around for a few more minutes, but thank you all for coming every week. Without you, we wouldn't have a show, so we're most grateful that you do come every Wednesday, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. And we've got some interesting guests around the corner that you're going to be interested in. I think Carrie Chapiano of Healing Boobies is on next week, which is going to be interesting for those of you that are dealing with breast cancer survivor issues. She's got an interesting program around aiding those of you that are dealing with breast cancer issues. And then the week after that, we've got Aileen Nitsky, who's just released this week, Cancer Harbors, a unbelievably informative system to help those struggling through the treatment program of survivorship. It's an amazing group of information and workshops and videos and articles. I mean, you got to go to cancerharbors.com, and so she's going to come on and talk to us about that. And then the week after that, we've got the Annie Appleseed Project. So we've got 3 upcoming different weeks, and we've got I guess Hayley, we've got about 6 or so others that we're trying to schedule right after that. So we've got a really nice schedule of interesting people to come on. And, we thank you for watching us every week and sending us the email that you'll find at findyournewnormal.com/askdave, and leave your comments. Don't be too hard on me. Some of you have been giving me some criticism, but that's okay.
Show me some love.
It's fine. We'll deal with that. But thanks for contributing and being part of it. And please come back and visit with us next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And we'll carry on this exploration of what to do as you work through the journey with cancer. So thanks very much for coming, and we'll see you next week. Take good care.
Bye-bye.